Hey there, you too. This is Sir Daniel 1975 music, and I am here to talk about a experience. But let me sort of set it up. I've seen a lot of people talk about their church gigs, uh, why church musicians are quitting or moving on or whatever or anything, and I heard their rants about this, and I thought their rants were uh, lame, to a certain degree. They were a little mad because maybe they got better than the other musicians, and they didn't want to play with people that were not as good as them. And I thought to myself, well, that's kind of the par for course for being a musician. You're gonna play with people that aren't as good as you. And now the excuses about being, wanting more money because of all the extra programming they start adding to the docket of the services and that require more music. And they say, well, if you're going to have me play more, I'm going to need more money. And I understand that. And so when they say no, that I understand, it may be a real logical excuse to move on. I think that's very logical to want to move on if you need more money. But I myself have done a share number of holiday service church gigs. I've never been like a consistent, every Sunday church musician. I know a lot of people are like they play like piano or guitar or bass or drums or whatever, and they're in the church band and they're there all the time. And I understand that would probably get old pretty fast for some musicians to play the same stuff over and over again. Not that you play the exact same stuff every service, but after a while, it seems like you just recently played that same piece, and it would probably get old. But the point I'm making is some people who are actually music ministers or church directors of music or whatever. Maybe it's just an organist. I don't know, but really, you might want to learn a little bit about some of the other instruments when you're hiring to bring in other players, because sometimes they're programming music that wasn't really written for that instrument, and it can be not the best choice to play on that particular instrument. And what I'm talking about is mostly geared at trumpet. And I'm not talking about the regular trumpet. So I'm actually talking about the piccolo trumpet. Okay. So this is one instrument that, most people would say the oboe is the hardest instrument on the planet. I would beg to differ. I would say the piccolo trumpet is the hardest instrument on the planet. Okay. So this instrument is intended to play the higher range for trumpet parts, okay? And particularly Baroque era style of music like Handel and Bach and stuff like that. So this instrument also, and most of the best players of this and people who teach trumpet in the university system will tell you to only play it in spurts of about 15 to 20 minutes in length. Okay. And I've been playing piccolo trumpet since the mid 90s. Okay. So I have easily played this style of instruments for 30 years. And I can tell you that is still true for me. About 20 minutes, 30 minutes is my peak on it. Now, also, piccolo trumpet music, the literature for piccolo trumpet is written, most of it, with the relief of getting some rests after you play a phrase, even if it's a long one. Okay. So, because you have to get the mouthpiece off the face. Okay. You just have to get the mouthpiece off the face. This is not an option. It has to come off the face. So here's my story of the church gig nightmare. So, and it was 3 years ago now, I think. Yeah, 3 years ago. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, I got contacted to play this church Easter gig. I can't. Can you?" And I says, "Yes," because I needed a gig at the time. And it says, "Yeah, but it's for two trumpets, and we can't seem to find another one." So we got one of our friends who used to play trumpet, plays another brass instrument now, but he filled the part of the second trumpet, and he worked his butt off for that and did well. Okay, but when we show up for the rehearsal, okay, and a friend and I, we got together and we rehearsed ahead of time, and there was one piece in there that was by Johann Sebastian Bach, okay, and I knew from the part that it wasn't a trumpet part, okay, that it was a composite part. It was the trumpet part, the string part, and the woodwind part composited into one piece, okay, so that every little music idea was covered at one point. So the point of this was that I'm getting at is there were no written rests. Okay, so let me get out the original. There's the original. Here it is. Still have it. It's a 2-pager. Okay, it's a 2-pager. There were no rests. Okay, of course, this is the C part. Yeah, it's the C part. So piccolo, trumpet, and A was put in that. And then for ease of the gig, I did do a transposed part. So because I said, man, there's no rest. He did give us a rest. And one of the whole notes, and I'll show it to you on the transposed part, he turned it into a half note so that we had 2 beats. And technically, it's 1 beat because it's in 2. So I had 1 beat to go throughout the whole thing. And it was with repeats and a coda. A DS to the beginning and to a fine. So it was long. So, but that's not the problem. That's not the real problem. The real problem was this piece was supposed to be performed at a fast tempo. As you said, as I was showing you, it's in 2. Well, they played it. I'll sing it as a da 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 da. That would have been the main tempo, the tempo that it was performed at, because the choir couldn't handle the piece, even though they've been practicing it for months. Da 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 da. That was the tempo that the whole thing went at. And so the piece ends up being twice as long as it needs to be, with no break of taking the horn off the face. So when a trumpet player says you shouldn't play piccolo trumpet more than 20 minutes, that doesn't mean you're playing piccolo trumpet with the mouthpiece on your face for 1 to 20 minutes with no time with the horn off the face in between that. That just means that you've played like, a couple minutes here, a few minutes there, within the span of 20 minutes, and then boom, let me put the horn down, because you can extra wear yourself out with piccolo trumpet. Okay, that was the nightmare. Okay, and so when I hear people talk about, I blah blah blah, I never want to play church gig again because someone wasn't as good as me in it, like, come on. Okay, and so maybe a symphony. I'm not a symphony player. Maybe a symphony player that gets to play like 3-4 hours a day every day. Could handle that. Then I was, lucky if I got 2 hours in a day because I had a day job. There's no way I was going to be able to have the stamina to get through that. Most musicians don't actually do it full time. They have, especially brass players and wind players, where they have day jobs. So anyway, it was near impossible. to get through it. And so that's what I'm talking about, where you music directors, you need to have a bit more understanding about some of the aspects of the other instruments. Okay. It is, I think it's essential, because you don't do that. You don't composite a part together, or whoever did this part. It was probably intended for somebody to show up at church and play it on violin, because it wouldn't need to breathe. Okay. And maybe a couple flute players. I don't know. But even still, that would have been hard too, because it's not a good place. The places to breathe, I know you put in breath marks and stuff, they're really not good. They're not good. And so, and that's part of the thing I'm trying to say is, if you're going to do Bach and Handel type stuff, if the choir cannot do the part at tempo, don't do it. Okay? Don't make that decision 4 months ahead of time. Oh, we're going to do this piece. And after the, third or fourth rehearsal, they can't get it up the tempo. You're like, well, you got to change. You got to pick something else out, and so that just something that just makes sense. So that's just my 2 cents, know what the strengths and the tendencies of other instruments are, so that you don't over program your church service. Okay. Word to the wise.